Okay, take two. I just recorded this and then I saw the hard drive had come out for some reason. Lost everything. Great, so I'm going to try it again. I'm going to do it quicker because you've already had this once, even though it's been wiped off the hard drive. That's too bad for me, and I'm afraid for everyone else. Or maybe that's good news for everyone else. Basically, what I wanted to try and give a summary of my personal theory for what it's worth, which is probably not much, on the biological um, origins and causes of this coronavirus, why it's been such a successful virus, more than almost any other virus in the history of viruses. Why has it been so successful in infecting man? Why has it come now? And I'm also going to talk about symptoms as part of this, part of the general picture. It's going to help us paint a suggestion for a theory. Symptoms. What are the symptoms? I'm going to be addressing the symptoms that many people report, apart from the weakness, the temperature, is loss of appetite. And one might say, yeah, loss of appetite is coincidental, or it's a side effect of a side effect through feeling so awful and having high temperature and weak, one's just not have the ability to eat. I'm going to suggest it might be something slightly deeper. Also, many people reported that they suffer from symptoms not of loss of appetite and not of temperature, not of weakness or short of breath, but rather just a slightly unusual loss of perception, loss of taste, and loss of olfactory sense, loss of smell. Specifically these, and I'm going to say again, might just be a coincidence, but maybe there is a deeper reason why this is happening. And so to explain this, I already explained it actually another bit, but I'm just putting it all together now. I wanted to talk a little bit about snakes, spiders, scorpions, mushrooms, poisonous frogs, poisonous insects like malaria carrying mosquitoes, even wasps, bees, all these things. So let's talk a little bit about them. To me, it's interesting that these types of creatures seem to have far more lethal abilities to inflict upon victims than do their far larger animal counterparts, who would ostensibly seem to be far more capable and ought to be far more powerful. Take like an elephant. How many people can an elephant sort of do in one go? It goes in this massive elephant going in a massive rage, a massive rampage. Take out 2-3 people, 3-4, not more than that. Whereas take your poisonous snake, your poisonous tarantula, your poisonous scorpion, which I don't wish on anyone. They don't seem to have any particular limit of any victims they can take out. They just sort of refill the poison sac and they're off again. Poisonous mushrooms, just eat a few people, just have to eat a group of them, and then however many people there are there will share a few mushrooms. They're all out. There seems to be no limit. And taking this to the extreme, let's go on the smaller scale even, the coronavirus, these pangolins just emit a few coronavirus, and the whole human race is out for the count. Why is yeah, and I'm going to address final point. Why did the coronavirus emerge just now? Where was it the last 100,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 10 million, 2 billion years? The pangolins have been there emitting their coronavirus for I think as long as one can remember. My grandmother and great grandmother, they all remember these pangolins doing this, and yet they didn't cause this human epidemic. So what happened just now? So coming back to snakes, scorpions, spiders, all these, and also mushrooms, frogs even. What is it that gives this lethal powers to these animals? So I've always viewed them as sort of being, like I mentioned earlier, earthy, crusty, earthy. Like the unfortunate victim of the slug. Someone swallowed a slug, just took him out in a day or two. He was like a finished, strapping young man. One slug knocks him out. Well, why is this meager slug able to knock out the strapping young fit man? And why is even one coronavirus cell of such a minuscule dimension able to knock out so many people? So let's talking about these crusty, dryish. I view these animals as sort of dry, crusty, earthy. They don't have this sort of refined, moist nature, a flesh format that do, for example, the larger mammal counterparts, and of course of humans. And that perhaps is the key to understanding it. These sort of more dry, earthy forms of life, crusty, dry, earthy, that is the issue. They are actually, in my view, they're sort of earth flesh together. It's the flesh sort of metabolizing the earth and keeping the earth, bringing it to, converting it to biological metabolizing material. Whereas that's what they're doing, that's what these crusty creatures are doing. Whereas the more refined mammals, the humans, etc., they're generally, their diet consists of taking already refined and sort of moist food content, whether it's vegetables or meat, and just assimilating and processing that. And that, I suggest, is far easier. Whereas if you actually want to assimilate, process, convert earth into organic material, you've got to have extremely powerful cellular processes, enzymes, amino acids to do that. And that there lies their strength. Why is it that because the snakes and spiders and the scorpions and many of their other counterparts, they have this inbuilt ability, this extremely powerful mechanism of taking earth, inorganic substance, and bring it to organic, sophisticated form, which requires extremely powerful enzymes and biological mechanisms. That is really what they're harnessing when they're creating their venom, their virulently powerful venom. They're harnessing these incredibly strong, powerful mechanisms. Whereas our larger biological counterparts are, you know, with the lions, the bears, the tigers, the elephants, they don't have to do that. They're on a far higher, refined level to a certain extent, and humans, proportionally even more so. Therefore, we don't have these huge, these extremely highly poisonous elements, biological elements, to the same extent that they do. And on the contrary, when these elements do actually find their way into our systems, you swallow a slug, one's bitten, God forbid, by spider, snake, or one swallows mushrooms even, extremely earthy, or certain poisonous frogs, which have got a certain earthy feel to them, I think. You're converting yourself to host to these powerful enzymes, mechanisms, which are going to be able to thereby overwhelm your systems totally, because they are so powerful. That brings me to the theory, this incredible biological theory. Like, yeah, who am I to suggest there are biological theories? But this is the theory anyway. That's what's been going on. Till now, for the last however many thousands of years, humanoids we kept to ourselves. There weren't too many billions of us, and the food chain kept us well supplied. We ate our wheat, barley, our beans, a bit of meat here and there. We would hunt for a few animals. We didn't sort of interfere too much. Yes, there were people who would eat sea fish and oysters and crabs and lobsters and maybe even bat soup, snake soup here and there, but only on special occasions. But what's happened since we've multiplied and been fruitful to the extent that we're now 10 billion of us, and there are so many profitable organizations that have made it their noble task to feed mankind, at the same time pocketing a nice profit. In order to do that, they have found many cheap sources of ostensibly healthy or acceptable sources of food in the form of these elements. They've taken all the biological garbage, basically, that's been available, and they've shipped it over to the humans, either directly through through crab, lobster, bat soup, snake soup joints. That's directly, but far more significantly, I think, indirectly, that all these and many more of these types of foodstuffs have been brought into the general food chain. They've been processed and then fed on wholesale scale too, as animal fodder. So all our chickens, maybe our cows, anything else, meat that we are domesticating and farming and feeding on, they have been fed extensively on these various other biological, earthy, and creatures in whatever form, but over an extended period. That has, in the end, caused us, humanoids, ultimately to assimilate a significant amount of that biological material. Yes, we haven't turned into octopuses or snakes or spiders or scorpions. I know a few human walking scorpions, yeah, and snakes. But we haven't developed any anatomical, physiological, or biologically visible manifestations of this. But I'm suggesting, on a deeper and very subtle biological cellular level, it's there. The material is there. And when it's assimilated into the human body, it's a potential foe. However, since it's in such small form, till now, we've managed to resist. It hasn't caused the damage. We didn't actually eat a whole slug in one go, so we've managed to ride the storm. But it's been there, and it's been growing. It's been amassing itself. It's not going away to a significant enough extent. That, I suspect, is what happened. We've reached a sort of critical level where this inappropriate biological material that we've assimilated is now in a position to actually form a biological threat to us ourselves. Then, take two, along comes Pangola number 1, who has been emanating coronavirus for years. We just haven't noticed. Finds corona victim number 1 in the Chinese bat market, infects him, and boom, he's got the critical biological bat mass, let's call it, to enable the coronavirus, when it infects him, to actually find a hospitable host. He's found his hospitable host, and he's able to multiply and cause the coronavirus effects. And also, thereby, he has passed it on. He's able to pass it on to all his friends in such with such ease, with such speed, such efficacy. Why? Because essentially all his friends have been waiting. They're waiting hosts. They've got the coronavirus type of biological makeup already. They just had to have the coronavirus, the COVID-19, to ignite it. That I'm suggesting is why it's happened now. That maybe also ties in with the side effects that we're experiencing. That part of the side effects that we mentioned earlier, namely loss of appetite, loss of sensory perception of smell and taste. Why is that? It's perhaps that, or could be purely coincidence, of course. I'm not saying I know for sure. But it could be that because our bodies are still fairly intelligent, they sort of realize, guys, we've got a problem here. It's not just the coronavirus that's infected us, that's come in, there's a problem, we've got to get them out. It's actually because of something part of what we have been consuming for the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, 1, 2, 3, 4 generations. That's really part of a fundamental part of the problem. And therefore the body sort of realizes, okay, we've got to stop consuming for a bit, especially those perhaps who are strong meat eaters. because or poultry or fowl, they may be consuming greater quantities of this bat biological material, bat, snake, spider, and all the other stuff that goes with it, chicken, feathers, feet, feces, etc. The body realizes that, therefore it says, okay, instead of Trump, Bibi, Macron putting us into shutdown, lockdown mode, the body says, I'm putting you, your whole digestive system and eating mechanism on hold, so you don't consume too much inappropriate material, with the hope that that can somehow just tilt the balance sufficiently to enable the coronavirus to be ultimately defeated by our own host defense systems. Hence those side effects that we've noted. What comes up from all this, that maybe our approach doesn't have to be necessarily, we're not talking about completely an external threat, we're talking about almost an internal threat. So we need to really change our habits, our diets, the way we produce food, be more respectful of the food chain as it should be, consuming what really we should be. It might also be a short-term operative direction. People might want to consider more organically orientated eating habits that can help sort of reduce the improper biological materials that they've assimilated. How long that will take, I have no idea. A day, a week, a month, a year, 10 years, 3 generations, another million years, we don't know. But it also means that the solution is not just more and more lockdowns. Like we've heard tonight, there's another lockdown on the way here in Israel on the 30th of the 3rd. It seems to be a rule of thumb that has to be every 24 hours, there has to be a new lockdown, because you can't be, if you're not going forward, you're moving backwards. So we have to be drafting new lockdowns every day. So today, we're all completely confined. So the next lockdown is actually a disturbing one, in my opinion, partly as a lawyer. They're talking about taking coronavirus, not victims, sufferers, and those who've been confined to solitary confinement, and they want to start concentrating them. That's an unfortunate word to use with unfortunate connotations, but they do want to start shepherding them out, herding them into controlled environments. I would call them leper hostels, leper colonies. They're converting various facilities that have themselves been abandoned. They're going to provide the facilities for all those unfortunate COVID-19 victims to be placed there, which I think that has actually very serious ramifications on a legal basis. That there's a potential for a strong, extremely strong infringement of basic human rights. There are probably people suffering, who are unwell people, they're probably going to be confined there against their will, almost imprisoned, which they already are, essentially. Yes, they're in danger, but this is taken even further, and they're going to be confined with multiple other victims, which is not the ideal environment, in my opinion, for them to make an optimal recovery. So it's almost like a sentence. I don't know what to think. Those people, unfortunate victims, are going to be confined to these hostels, whatever they are. What I would say is, just for the government, the acting government, on the signature, based on the signature of a couple of ministers, boom, we've got all these unfortunate victims being consigned and confined. I don't think it should work that way. I think there has to be some judicial and civil oversight, and there has to be a serious consideration of all the implications of this. The legal implications, the prejudicing of human rights implications, psychological implications, which are going to be very strong, very severe. The social taboo implications, sociological implications, splitting up families. It's going to cause a lot of social, psychological trauma. the economic implications, A, of funding this, and B, of certainly compromising any victim's ability to continue effectively being productive. And therefore, before enacting such measures, extreme measures, I think it's another ground to justify requiring government to be supervised in a fairly supervised and scrutinized in a fairly controlled, defined manner, to ensure that there is no undue abuse of power. That's it for today from coronavirus freedom fighters. Have a great day, and may we all be blessed with good news and good health. And of course, keep to the rules. The rules at the moment are to promote everyone's safety. We have to keep to them. We can discuss whether they are optimal, they're effective, are they fair, are they judicious, are they appropriate in measure and in kind, but we have to nevertheless absolutely pay heed to them in full, because otherwise that's the end of society. So I don't want to be the one responsible for that. Have a good night. Thank you.